Hi, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to Lesson Gems. My name is Brother Lammers. I have the lesson that is assigned for Friday, March the 14th, or the lesson that is number 37 in your seminary teacher curriculum, section 21. This is a section that is so near and dear to how I have changed just the way that I live. I love the desired outcome today. Remember, the very first paragraph in your lesson manual and the very last sentence of every introductory paragraph is the desired outcome. Please make sure that you focus on this desired outcome and then adapt all of the lesson materials to your specific situation, your personal study style and teaching style. So the desired outcome for today is to help our students follow the words of the Lord's prophets in patience and faith. This lesson is very, very well done. If you follow it start to finish, it's going to be very, very good. Let me share with you how I want to teach this or to adapt to what the lesson desired outcome is. I want to help our students establish this truth. First and foremost, have them link these two verses, Hebrews 13:8 and Amos chapter 3, verse 7. The first truth that we want them to see is God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The way he's always done it is the way he will do it. Amos 3:7 says that God only reveals his secrets through his servants, the prophets. So if he's always done it this way, they've had the opportunity to link those verses together. Please make sure that you ask this question, or I invite you to consider this question. Why? Why do you think that God communicates through his prophets? What are the advantages of this? If God only does what's for our benefit, what is the benefit of him communicating through prophets? Invite them to consider this question. And then if we see the benefits of this happening, now let's establish this truth, the truth that we want to teach throughout today's lesson. When the prophet speaks, it is the same as Christ speaking. In section 1, verse number 38, and so I'll pull up my phone here, so we'll open up section 1 in the Doctrine and Covenants, verse number 38. If you scroll all the way down towards the very bottom of this, in verse number 38, you'll see that whether it be by the voice of my servants or by the voice of Jesus Christ, it is the same. Please make sure that you invite your students to consider that this is Jesus Christ speaking in the Doctrine and Covenants. This is his voice. So whether it is by the voice of Jesus Christ or the voice of his servants, specifically the prophets, I invite you to highlight servants and make sure that you put in the little note right there that that is the prophets. And so when we have that little note there for servants, whether it be by the voice of Jesus Christ or by the voice of his servants, the prophets, it is the same. Now let's do it again in section 21 in the Doctrine and Covenants. In section 21, I invite you to consider this little exercise that is in, again, your in the lesson manual that says, change the words he and his and him to the prophet. And so what does that look like? Invite a student to read verses 4 and 5 and to change any time it says he or his or him to the prophet and have them read the verse. Wherefore, meaning the church, thou shalt give heed unto all the prophet's words and commandments which the prophet shall receive or should give unto you as the prophet receiveth them. And so you'll see how it is. Now in verse number 5, you shall receive the prophet's words as if from the mouth of Jesus Christ. It is the same. So this wonderful truth is being established that have them write it down or have it on the board. When the prophet speaks, it is as if it is Jesus Christ speaking. When they have this truth, it is written down. I invite you to say it backwards and forwards. Why do I care? And the reason I care is because verse number 6 is so powerful. In verse number 6, please invite them to look for, as they read, what they want. If you will listen unto the voice of the prophet, or try to follow the prophet, as if it is the voice of Jesus Christ, the Lord will disperse the powers of darkness. It will cause the heavens to shake for your good and his name's glory. What does that mean? What does that look like? Put it into the language that you will use. So if this is true, and I want you to assume with me, and I want my students to be very, very clear, if this is not something that is part of your mind and your heart, and you know this and you love it, assume that it's true. Assume that when the prophets speak, it's as if Jesus Christ is speaking. And now if you have this assumption or this truth, we're going to try and we're going to test it. All right? So I want to help my students know what they can do to follow the prophet. They've sung that song in their primary classes, follow the prophet, and it's going to be great. But how? How can I literally try to do that better today? I'm going to give them 2 opportunities or 2 invitations to try to practice at following the prophets. The very first thing they want to do is right here. President Oaks, I'll put this in the description below, the link to this YouTube video. Last week, President Oaks, underneath the direction of the First Presidency, was given the commission or given the task to create this video, inviting us to focus and prepare specifically on the resurrection in this upcoming Easter season. And then he gives counsel on how to do that and what things you can do. So invite your students to look for the counsel given by the voice of the prophet or by the voice of Jesus Christ, what he wants you to focus on in the next month. Now we have specific things. He said to do this. I can follow the prophet if I do this. The second thing that I want you to do, or I'm going to invite my students to do, is use the promise search idea. Let me share with you what that looks like. In your Gospel Library app, if you're in your home section, wherever you are, hit this little magnifying glass. Once you hit magnifying glass, I invite you to type in the word promise. Now, every time the word promise is used in the Gospel Library app, which is so many, but narrow it down. Please go to speakers and then go to President Nelson. Now, every single time that the prophet has said, I promise, or promise, we have it right here, and it's also in numerical order in the talk. So let me share with you what we're going to do. And when it says define, model, practice, I want to model this first before I invite them to do it on their own. So here's what I'm inviting you to do. Type in promise, then pick any talk from President Nelson, because then you'll touch on that talk. Here's his most recent talk. Here is the prophet of God, or Jesus Christ, saying, I promise to you that every sincere seeker of Jesus Christ will find him in the temple. So here is their mission, and it's twofold, you guys, and I want you to do this. So let me model it for you. Identify the promise, but then identify what he's inviting you to do, and then also what are you promised if you do it. So if you try to go to the temple, you will feel his mercy. You will find answers to your most vexing questions. You will better comprehend the joy of his gospel. And I really, really love this promise technique, because if you do it in the Gospel Library app, so for example, rejoice in priesthood keys. If you touch on this, they say, well, it's promise number 4, and I'm just making this up. You scroll down by using the down arrows. Here's promise number 4 right there. Or it's promise number 7, and you go to promise number 7. We are also promised in the temple that we'll receive the fullness of the Holy Ghost. Now, you've defined it for them, you've modeled it for them, now you let them go practice. Brothers and sisters, do this with me for just 2 minutes. Pick any of these talks, read the promises, but then identify what are you being invited to do, and then invite them to look for the promised blessings if they do it. And that's our invitation to act. Once we've done this, once we've given them an opportunity to practice, hey, here's what the prophet has said. Here's what I can do. Now, let's go get it. I really want this to be a practical application lesson, because if the voice of the prophet is the same as Jesus Christ, or when Jesus speaks through his prophets, it is the same as his voice, teach them how they can follow the prophet, and they have this device that brings the promises of the prophets in numerical order at just a couple of clicks of a button. Then invite them to look at one. Here's my invitation for you to act. Pick one of the promises. Pick what you want to do. Now go get it. Follow the prophet and test to see if those promised blessings will come. Now, I hope that will give you ideas on how you can make this practical and application. But can I leave with you one more invitation? And this might be even a little bit extra, or if you have time. I invite you to share your experiences with your students. So if you're done with your video, but let me share with you my personal experience with the prophets, where my life has changed. My life was changed in multiple ways, but 2 specifically, and I'll just share one with you. In October of 2014, So if you go to October of 2014, I believe it's Sunday morning session. It is, Sunday afternoon. It's Elder Scott. Elder Scott changed my life completely when he called me out. He called me out for the excuses I was making in my life. He said, don't yield to Satan's lie that you don't have time to study your scriptures. Choose to take time to study them. Feasting on the Word of God is more important than all of my excuses I had at that time. It's more important than all of this sleep, school, television, anything. If you need to reorganize priorities, do it. So he hit me. I know what a prophet asked me to do. I see the counsel. The very next paragraph, it says, here is what you're promised if you try. I've tried it. I have received these blessings. And so that's my last invitation for you as a teacher. Share with them your experience. Give them a taste of what it is to follow the prophet, the blessings you've received. Now, don't make that the central focus. Make sure that they get a taste of how to practice it themselves, but give them a taste of what you've experienced. Teachers, let them feel of your sincere love of God's prophet, because you know God's prophet is the voice of Jesus Christ. Help them see it. Help them love it. I wish you the best this week, and please, please keep doing what you're doing. You are amazing.